A Marin County perspective regarding One Bay Area, the region's effort to develop sustainable communities.
Within One Bay Area, we are one of 9 counties, and in our county, Marin County, we want to make sure that we put our appropriate land uses where they belong, so that housing is where it's close to transit and services, that resource lands like agricultural lands or beautiful parklands or special wetlands and other important resource environments are respected and not trammeled by future development.
This is not about going into a relatively small community and trying to destroy its character, but much more along the lines of how might a community accept some growth that will enhance its character.
What One Bay Area means to Marin is both opportunity and mandate, depending upon which part of the legislation you're looking at, and perhaps also your own perspective. Senate Bill 375 certainly provides an opportunity for Marin County and the local jurisdictions that make up Marin County to engage in a process of defining this long-term growth scenario, referred to as a sustainable community strategy for the San Francisco Bay Area and our own local communities. That is intended ultimately to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
These laws came into effect because people that were living and working in our community that couldn't afford the housing that was being built were forced to move further and further away from their jobs, and thus create more traffic and gridlock and greenhouse gas challenges, which is what the SB 375 and Sustainable Community Strategy is trying to address now, in how do we create communities in a way that minimizes those impacts and provides a full range of housing opportunities.
This is very much so a regional effort, a regional planning effort to more closely knit land use and transportation planning.
Trying to keep development within the city boundaries and not sprawling like the problems we've been seeing in Southern California, and to create the full range of housing that's needed. The state has certain requirements for what we get to count as housing and what we don't get to count. For example, in our community, which is rapidly aging, we don't get to count senior assisted living. Habitat for Humanity has come in and converted blighted homes that are in the middle of neighborhoods into affordable homes for purchase for people that are lower income according to our median. And we don't get to count those conversions. The county just converted about 150 units in the Marin City area to be all affordable, and the state only allowed us a quarter of a count for that. And so I think rightfully there are people in the Bay Area, and even right here in Marin, that are questioning why we don't get to really build for our population needs the way we need to, and are asking that maybe we can work with our state legislators to figure out a way to modify that so that we get to count the full range of housing programs that we build or redevelop to meet the needs of our population. If we are able to create opportunities for the public to be fully engaged, to figure out how to manage the growth in our communities. And Marin County is a very slow growing county, but still when we are dealing with issues like housing density, 4 or 5 story, developments in the middle of suburban, smaller style homes, ranch style homes, the fit doesn't seem right. It leaves a bad taste in the community's mouth, the people that have lived there and helped build that community.
So our interest is primarily in planning to make sure that our land uses reflect the values of our community and the needs of our planet. We have some overlaying responsibilities which have to do with transportation. If you want to have a train from here to Sonoma, you've got to have people living close by, because if you don't have people living close by, you won't have riders. If you don't have riders, you'll have a very expensive train.
When there is housing and businesses, when they are located proximate to a transit station within a half mile or so, with some density, with some intensity of businesses and services and so forth, it's much more likely that that rail line is going to be successful because people will ride it. And if that isn't there, those those services tend not to be nearly as successful. So that is certainly an opportunity for both Marin and Sonoma County to look at how they can contribute to the sustainable community strategy.
And then, of course, we have a responsibility for the most vulnerable. Statutorily, as a county, we are the providers of last resort for the most vulnerable, the economically disadvantaged. And if we're going to have one Bay Area, we have all economic incomes. Well, we need to make sure that the kinds of development that we have make provisions for the poorest as well as the wealthiest. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face throughout the Bay Area, but especially here in Marin, is how do we appropriately provide for housing that's affordable for lower income workers when the natural market forces just simply won't provide that.
One of the other issues that people are confused about is, what is low-income housing or affordable housing? And they confuse low-income housing with public housing, which is, HUD, very low, extremely low-income housing that's managed by a housing authority. What the low-income housing is that you're earning 50 to 80% of what the median income is for your community, and you can't afford to buy the house that's in your community or rent the house in your community. And the median income in our county has been in the $90,000 to $95,000 a year range. So if you're looking at 50% of that salary, now you're looking at teachers, and you're looking at childcare workers, and you're looking at our retail workers and our gardeners and our daycare providers and the people in our community that aren't meeting, that aren't making that median income, but who are still providing very important services for our community.
To the extent that Marin County is able to identify areas that can contribute to the sustainable community strategy, whether or not we're going to have the funding available, whether it's local, state, or federal, to help pay for transportation improvements and other infrastructure that's needed to accommodate this future growth is one big unanswered question.
We're dealing with issues like our infrastructure and water resources and educational systems. Do we have everything else in place in our infrastructure that we need to accommodate the growth that we're expected to have? And these are really important questions, and it's going to be really important that the public is heard and that our state legislators will listen to our public as we try to work with them to tweak and revamp how this process has been working. Right now, the housing element is just a plan. It says you have to zone for it. It may never ever get built. So it's a very tedious, very expensive exercise, zoning and planning exercise. But I think there are those out there that want to see that we're actually also getting some units built to accommodate the needs in our community. And so it has to be, the right place with the right process, with the right infrastructure and the transit links and everything else that goes into place so that we can really truly say that we are building sustainable communities.
When these kinds of initiatives come to us from the state, there's a natural reaction of, hey, this is an unfunded mandate. What are you doing telling us we know best what we should do for our community? When you think of ourselves and our position within the region, you realize that we depend on other counties every day. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of people coming into our county every day to work, but they don't live here because they can't afford to live here. We travel to jobs in other places because the jobs that we, as our residents, want to have don't all occur in Marin County. So there really is an interdependence within our region. And I think that one of the things that we should be thinking about as we go forward on this process and all of these planning processes is that we really are no better than the whole. We each have a place and a piece of this. And so I just want to encourage folks who are concerned about the thought that these issues are being imposed upon us to understand that these are real dynamic forces that are at work whether we think about them and plan for them or not. These are natural transitions that are occurring within our society, and that it is appropriate for us in Marin County to think from our unique perspective, but also to think within the context of our region and our state. And that really is what this SB 375 is. It's 10 years of discussion and hard work and foiled legislation, ultimately successful in 2008, that recognized that transportation and land use are connected. You can't solve the problem with either without the both being together, and that planning needs to happen for all income levels to be effective, that we can't just take care of one segment of the population. So I really am just saying that we are a part of the whole, and that when we feel uncomfortable about something being hoisted upon us, if we step back just a little bit, we realize that these issues are issues that are undercurrents in our community and throughout the state of California and the nation as well.
And to stay up to date on the One Bay Area process, here are resources for you.